Hello, everybody. So we are here for Dev Propulsion Labs episode 2. Today we've got a really exciting topic to discuss. We're going to talk about technical marketing, which is kind of like a swear word in the tech community, but it is what it is. We've got an amazing panel here. So let me just give a quick round of introductions. We'll start with Salma. Salma Alam-Naylor is a software engineer, writer, live streamer. She works at Netlify and helps developers build amazing products through her content. So Salma, do you want to give a quick introduction, what you do, where you work, that kind of thing?
Thank you. So yeah, I always hate sharing my job title because it's far too long, but I'm a senior staff developer experience engineer for Netlify. And that involves educating developers about what we do at Netlify and general web best practices and helping people build cool stuff. My speciality is like helping people build silly stuff, really. I always say that I write code for your entertainment live on Twitch every week. And I use Netlify, I use front-end frameworks, I use random things and try to have a lot of fun with it because it's just code, doesn't have to be serious. Netlify is a web development platform where you can do all sorts of things, host your websites, use serverless functions, integrate with many popular tools. It's perfect for hosting your personal portfolio or your enterprise application. And it's moving really quickly and expanding. And it's really exciting to work there at this type of growth. So that's me. Oh, and some fun facts. I used to be a music teacher and a comedian.
That's exciting. Maybe we'll hear some jokes from you today, hopefully. The next up is Paul Copplestone. He is the CEO and co-founder at Supabase, the open source Firebase alternative. You must be seeing Super Launch Week all over your feed because right now it's the launch week for Paul's team. And they know what they're doing. So, Paul, a quick intro. Tell us about what you're up to.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah. Supabase obviously is a tool wrapped around Postgres largely to make it very easy for developers to get started. We actually work very well with Netlify and other Jamstack platforms, but also launching today, a bit of mobile support. So yeah, if you're building on top of or starting a new project, then it's very cool to use Supabase. Myself, I'm a techie by trade of about nearly 20 years now, and also an ex-founder. This is my third startup. And so, this startup went through YC about 3 years ago now in the summer 20 batch. And since then, we've been growing it fully remotely. So we're spread across 20 different countries with 60 people.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up is Brad Gessler. He is an experienced founder. He co-founded and bootstrapped Paul Everywhere to 10 million ARR. Now he's back at it with Rocketship, and he's building the next generation cloud for Flight.io. So Brad, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. So I'll start with kind of what I'm now doing day to day. I get to just play around with Rails and Ruby projects and do all sorts of things with Rails, bend it in all sorts of different ways and write about it, and hopefully find new techniques that just make it easy for other Rails and Ruby developers to build applications and deploy them, which brings me to Fly. I'm writing all this stuff for Fly, and if you're wondering what Fly does, essentially you can deploy Linux servers really close to your users with one command. So if you want to deploy a Rails application to, say, 30 different servers around the world, you just type in fly deploy, it builds a Docker file, it ships your Rails application to all these servers, and it just runs. So it's a beautiful way to run your Rails apps closer to your users, so it's faster.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, last but not least, is our principal backend engineer. Vladimir Dementiev is really a Ruby prodigy. He's one of the best engineers I know. He's building Anycable along with a dozen of other projects. And he's writing a book he's a very active technical speaker. Vova, do you want to give a short intro as well?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. It's hard to add anything to this one, but I will try. I see like I should tell about products probably, and not about Evil Martians at this point. So Evil Martians Chronicles is my blog posting platform, kind of. But apart from that, I'm working on products and open source projects. So my product is AnyCable, and I'm not wearing its t-shirt, sorry. And it's actually, it's also from the Rails world for now, Ruby and Rails world, but we plan to expand to other universes. And it's a real-time server for Rails applications. It's actually WebSocket server, which handles a lot of load and scales or whatever. Could be deployed on fly. Maybe someday will be integrated to Supabase. We need to think about it, or maybe integrated into it. But anyway, so it's a tool that powers many high-load real-time applications written with Rails and Ruby. And the fact that it exists and the reasons why it exists and why I started working on it is to combine powerful technologies like Go, but originally it was Erlang actually, but like Go won this battle, and Ruby with its developer happiness philosophy and productivity of Rails to build scalable real-time applications faster. That's my product side of things, and a part of that I'm working on a lot of open source, mostly in Ruby as well, and write about it pretty frequently. So probably going to talk about it today a bit more. And that's it for now. Yeah, thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you. And let's start with a really high-level question. Like, let's talk about technical marketing. Like, what is it? What's the value of it? And let's maybe narrow it down specifically to developer tools. How does technical marketing help a developer tools business? And let's start with Brad here. Brad, what do you think? You're on mute.
The first rule of technical marketing is to not call it technical marketing and not think of it that way. It's really about just having a natural conversation with your customer who is a developer and they happen to be very technical. So they're going to ask pretty hard questions. And if you don't know how to answer those, or if you're BSing your way through it, they're going to smell it a mile away. So when I think about technical marketing, it's really about actually having conversations with your customers, developers, understanding what problems they're actually having, and going out and solving those problems and telling them about it. That's a key thing. You can't just build it and then ship something. You have to tell them about it, how it's going to solve their problems. You need to make it easy. And those are kind of the key things I think about whenever it comes to, how are you having a conversation with engineers?
Okay, awesome. I mean, developers are kind of like a tough crowd to sell. And technical marketing is not really marketing, right? Well, do you want to share your opinion on what a technical marketing does for a developer tools business? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just strongly agree with Brad. I think it's really just telling people what you've just built. That's how we summarize it to our engineers. They spend 3 months building something, and then we tell them to put down their sort of programming hat and pick up their writing hat for a couple of weeks and just write down everything that they built, or why they built it, the problems it solves. From there, you reach the developers who actually need to build using those tools, right? So developers have a problem that they need to solve, and hopefully you've built something that can help them solve those problems. And you just need to put it in front of them, remind them that the solution exists, how it solves the problem, and then hopefully educate them along the way about why it's a good way to solve the problem or how you went about building it.
Mm-hmm. So just a little sub question. So do you identify the problem first and then talk about it? Yeah.
You identify the problem first and then you build to solve for that problem. So customers, of course, will tell you, actually they'll tell you the feature they want. They don't tell you the problem that they need solved, but you can always parse out really the problem They'll tell you exactly how they want it solved, of course, as well. That one's probably more around product. But then, of course, you go away and you think about it. And that's why when you come back to them with, hey, we've solved your problem, here's how we solved it, and here's why it's the best way. It's going to reach the developer. They ask for something, you listen to them, you delivered it, and hopefully you over-delivered on what they asked.
Yeah, over-delivering is key. Under-promising, over-delivering is the key. Vova, do you want to expand on that as well? Do you want to talk about technical marketing from perspective of an engineer, but also, somebody who is building their own product?
Yeah, let me start with the open source side of things, like products. Like we have product, but well, let's be honest, it's still very young one to consider a business or whatever. So so let's talk about open source. And for open source, I think like marketing, although yeah, developers hate this word. I hated it when I joined the Martians, and I've been forced to do marketing. So yeah, but anyway, without any kind of presence in the community, and that's what marketing is, kind of one of its features, you just cannot build your open source product and make it available to users. They must have known about it somehow. How? Just looking at the GitHub and scrolling and searching for GitHub? No one does that. People like watch newsletters, social networks, probably follow some other people on GitHub, and what do they start? That's one of the way. That's kind of a hidden marketing plan for some tools probably. But initially, you need to invest into promoting your project if you really want to have more users, just you or your colleagues. And I believe every open source project needs that, because without users, you cannot make it better. You cannot improve it. You don't know how to make it better because you live in your own problem space, which is likely to be very limited. And the project you're building on may be applicable to much more situations. And that's how it becomes popular projects used by the community. But the first steps, you just need to start telling about your project. Not yelling all around probably, but just making everyone know that it exists. So from this point of view, marketing is essential for open source. If you really want to do something to be part of community, not your own open source island, yeah. So just as a communication tool between you and your users. Consider it like that, not as a selling tool or whatever. Just the best communication tool for you and your open source users.
Okay.
So yeah, and from the business point of view, I think Brad and Paul both added good points here. I can add more, like, the launch week is right now in progress for Supabase. Why we that's I think that's very valuable for the product and the more valuable marketing technique. I think, like, kind of know-how probably, which I believe works great, and we see it not the first time. So yeah, marketing is essential for business too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Supabase Twitter kind of speaks for itself, right? You see the engagement and you kind of understand how it works. Salma, do you want to close on this topic and kind of give us your understanding of how technical marketing works? Maybe it's a little different.
So I definitely echo everything that's been said. The key points being have a conversation with your audience, solve their problems, and don't do traditional marketing. I hate that word too. Sometimes I really have a problem being associated with the marketing department, because as a developer, it's a terrible word and developers hate it. I'm a developer, I hate it. And on that note, like, developers are actually really hard to sell to. They can see through the hard selling, the BS. They don't want to listen to you. But developers are great at selling to each other. So, like, as a developer, if you use a really cool tool and it solved a problem for you, or it's just really shiny and really exciting, you want to tell people about it. You get on Twitter or whatever and you say, hey, look at this. And so if you can reach that early adopter audience, that excited audience who love shiny tools, you can kind of get them to do your marketing for you authentically by spreading the word. And, because people aren't scrolling through GitHub, as we've been talking about. And so it's about that kind of word of mouth, that connection, that communication, that conversation between a community, which we've talked about as well. Because early adopters, they're online, they're everywhere. There is a different kind of approach that you'll need to take for people who are not online, because probably most developers don't spend all of their time online. But if you can provide value to the early adopters, solve their problems, give them what they need by having that back and forth, then they will go forth and sell it to other people. Just like if you buy, everyone's selling air fryers to each other these days, aren't they? Because it's the next best thing. So be that air fryer and everyone will rave about you. And additionally, if you can inspire people through your technical marketing, through education, through showing people what's possible, what's fun, what's exciting, what's cool, they'll then be inspired to go forth and do that. And kind of, rather than just tell people about it, they'll show people more, which again is like, I don't like this phrase, but the proof is in the pudding. If people are going forth and making things with your tools and your stuff, they exist in the real world. And that's also marketing, not just what people say, but what people are doing as well. So authenticity is key to that, especially in the developer community. And you can't achieve that by just telling people to buy your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like developer community and developer marketing are, overlap a lot. So how do you make sure that the messaging that you're trying to put across resonates with engineers? I mean, it's one thing to understand the problem, but you also need to speak their language, right? So, Vladimir, maybe you want to expand on that a little bit. Like, how do you make sure that your content that you put out there resonates, whether it's technical articles, whether it's tweets, whatever it is, or even conference talks,
Yeah, that's a good question. Wish I knew there is a way to know beforehand what will resonate with the audience, but I think kind of do that organically by just monitoring many different feeds of news, trends, being a part of community, Slack, Discord groups, taking part in conversations, discussions, just a lot of information collection and kind of trend monitoring. Trend is the same bad word as marketing, I think, for developers, right? But let's use them today. Why not? It's a tech marketing stream, right? So yeah, but that's just the way it is. You just need to be in a stream. You need to know about what's happening, what is the current drama, in Rails and Ruby. It's a very common thing. What is a current hype, whatever. And that's the best way to come up with some idea which will resonate. And or maybe you can add this potential resonating element to what you're working on right now. So you probably have tons of drafts of content, like posts, videos, whatever, scripts. And you can just change them a bit or add some side notes which will resonate with the current situation in the community. But for that, you just need to be aware of that. So that's probably the best thing to do if you want to be on the edge of the current situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, my favorite thing on Twitter right now is just, because I'm following a bunch of engineers, a bunch of technical founders, and as a non-technical person, I can resonate to some, not to everything, right? Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming to scroll through your feed and just see technical things all the time. And I feel like Supabase is finding that nice balance between, just being approachable, even for maybe more junior engineers, and being technical at the same time. So Paul, do you want to share your strategy in terms of how do you guys do that? How do you find that balance, and how do you make sure that you keep resonating with your crowd?
Yeah, it's probably a segmentation thing as well, I guess. We don't use the same sort of tone in our blog and Hacker News as we do on Twitter. And it's not to say, I mean, Salma mentioned authenticity. I think that one's really critical for whatever you're doing. For example, Twitter is just my co-founder. It's really he comes up with the memes and they're genius and they're like got this thing that I can't do. But a really good example of why this matters is someone actually did a big breakdown of how Supabase does Twitter marketing. It's a longer post than we've even put thought into. And then that went on Hacker News, and we got torn to shreds on Hacker News about how, this marketing doesn't work. And it's one of the worst threads we've ever had on marketing. And of course, then my co-founder just went and put a meme about that Hacker News thread on Twitter. So, we don't use the same voice, but it's not to say we're not being authentic each time. We just know that Hacker News want deeply technical things, and it's not so useful on Twitter, where the half-life of a tweet is only a few hours and only a few people will actually see it. So we really had to adjust. And for me, especially, I really dislike, because I used to browse Reddit, and if you use a Reddit post from a while ago, you'll get a lot of shit. So I was very afraid of reposting on Twitter, but we'll do it frequently, maybe a month apart, and people, or even a year apart, something that we've shipped, and the Twitter community will say, thank God you finally shipped this. But of course we shipped it a year ago, they just missed it. So, it's really a different strategy, and you've got to find your groove with each of the different mediums.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, internet is really oversaturated with information, there's also trends, right? Like right now, everybody's talking about AI. So I think we should talk about AI a little bit too. I mean, it's hard to find kind of like something that you can relate to in your feed, let alone like big platforms like Reddit. It really is a challenge. So let's go to the AI question. Do you feel like it helps with tech marketing? Maybe Brad, can share his stance on this. Do you feel like AI is going to replace us all, at some point?
No, assuming AI doesn't run away from us. Humans have a pretty good history of building tools that help us. If they're not, then we either, don't know that, or if we do know it, then we're probably trying to destroy it. So I actually have a lot of confidence in humanity on this front. I did write an article recently about pairing with GPT-4. And while that wasn't necessarily AI helping me with marketing, I did try to have GPT-4 write pieces of that article for me, and it did not work out well. I tried to just give it kind of the notes that I wrote to sum it up. But I think GPT-4 could do a good job summarizing some of those. Just what I was doing, it wasn't. What I can say, it did help me take some of the code samples that I was working with and kind of clean those up and make those more shareable. So I could just say, here's some code, rewrite this so that it's more reusable. And then I want to have inline bundler in there, and it was able to do that. So I think I also don't like using the word AI. I call them LLMs, large language models. I do see those being helpful to actually get more marketing content out there if it's done in a thoughtful way. I think there's a fear that LLMs are going to just generate all of this content and saturate the web with it. And I do think that will happen. I do think that will be true. But again, humans are clever. We know if you think about marketing to developers, like you can't BS them. So if you're saturating them with garbage content, it's not going to fly. That's not going to change. Like people want to read good content. They don't care if it's written by a human or an LLM. Like just give them something that's relevant, that's good, that's useful for them, that makes them smarter, that gives them superpowers, and you're going to be fine. I do think LLMs, AI is going to help there. And I think it's also going to hurt in some areas. So it's just going to change the game. But it's going to be more stories, I guess, for us to talk about and to tell and to share as people who are marketing products.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody else want to add on the AI, Salma?
I think one of the key things to level up your tech marketing, so to speak, is to repurpose your content into different mediums, you know, a tweet thread or a TikTok or a blog post or a video. And I think AI could end up being quite helpful for that. I've had some success with taking a transcript from a video and asking ChatGPT to give me the bullet points, and then I've been able to write a blog post from that. I wanted to call out actually that there's a startup called Contender that are claiming to do that for developers specifically. I've tried it out and it wasn't bad. And it took a 3-hour Twitch stream and gave me like a blog post outline with clips. My Twitch stream was nonsense, so the blog post was nonsense, but it summarized it very well. So I think AI in our kind of ecosphere will be useful, I think, when it gets better for tech content repurposing, so you don't have to spend too much mental effort in doing that yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna use, was it Contender? I'm gonna use it to transcribe this this talk. Bova, did you want to add on this question as well, or no?
Yeah, just maybe a little bit to continue Salma's thoughts, because I also consider GPT models, or whatever right now we call AI, right, as just another tool for us. So like from a tech marketing point of view, it's just a tool we can use. And we also tried like doing some summaries, converting posts to tweets, to tweet threads. It doesn't work well, but it helps you to get an idea. Sometimes you can see something you haven't thought about yourself and include it into your human written thread or post or whatever. So that's just like, as Brad said, pairing with AI can be useful. You just need to learn how to work with it. And it's just like going maybe kind of a new era of tooling for doing our everyday work, maybe more productive, maybe less actually sometimes. At this moment, actually, for me at least, using AI is less productive. I spend a lot of time trying to make it produce something meaningful, but still it's just we're just learning from each other, actually. But that's hard to understand. But yes, we're learning from each other. That's great. So yeah, that's just changing the rules. But I think every content, like technical, non-technical, whatever, produced by human, it is only good if it has, you know, a bit of creativity in it. And AI, frankly speaking, can I say this word? Okay, not good in it. So yet, at least, maybe GPT, whatever, 100 something, will be creative. But I don't believe machine can be creative, actually. So we are still here, humans. We are safe, at least creative humans. Okay, so.
That's great. I mean, it's just another tool in your toolbox, right? Like, and sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but when I try to create an image with Midjourney, for example, it's like I'm going down the rabbit hole. It's like I'm gone for the day. And it's not something that actually improves your, you know, productivity in a way. So it really is a tricky balance. But what I find it's helpful with is coming up with ideas. I'm kind of like bouncing ideas off the AI, you know, to get maybe a new direction or a new take on some problem that I'm already experiencing. So let's talk about actually writing good technical articles. Because you guys are dealing with quite complex things, but you're also speaking to engineers in your articles mainly. So what's the recipe of a good technical article? What's the best approach to marketing complex features? Maybe some best practices in demo creation. Those are the questions I want to discuss. Salma, do you want to start on that?
A good technical article, I think, starts with empathy for your reader. You don't know who's reading your article. You don't know whether they are a native English speaker or what previous experience they've had, what their road to their development journey has been, or whether they even have begun to start developing. And so the way I always approach that is regardless of how complex the concept is, I take like a basic, simple beginner level and then kind of enhance it with other things. It kind of harks back to when I used to be a teacher. So I was a music teacher in classrooms teaching 11 to 18-year-olds. And with something like music, you have such a vast range of abilities in any classroom because there are specialist instrumental players and there are people who have never picked up an instrument in their life. So you have to be able to cater for the wide range of people in there, inspiring the least experienced people whilst stretching the experts. So it sounds like an impossible task, but there are ways to do that in your writing that mean you can reach a larger audience. Because people who know about these complex things will not hate your article if you're explaining something. And so if you can break down every single concept in simple terms, analogies, I think, are really helpful with that as well, like relating these complex technical things to real world objects and things like that. And then for the people who are more advanced, maybe provide them with extra reading if they need. Because I think some of the less good articles I've seen in the wild try to be over complex. Maybe the reader tries to assert that they know everything about this. And so they're using all these fancy city long words, which make me just want to put the article in the bin. And with that as well, I think try to remove as much bias and opinions from your articles as possible. So some of the tutorials I've seen for very basic concepts involve installing a million NPM packages that you don't need. You know, oh, I'm going to teach you how to use Postgres and Next.js, but I'm going to make you install Tailwind as well, and I'm going to make you install some other things that you don't need. But I needed them, so you can have them too. So it's about removing as much of the complexity as possible and providing the clearest journey from A to B throughout that article. Because you can even inspire a beginner by writing something well and engaging them with the language rather than overloading them with technical jargon. For productivity, so I like to also try to help the person who's reading be as productive as possible. So I've noticed some articles on the web, they include images of code that you can't copy and paste. So always make sure that you're providing copy pastable code examples. Even better if you can provide like a link to a ready-made GitHub project that people can clone. On Netlify, we have the deploy to Netlify button, which you can just click once and it clones a GitHub repo to your GitHub account and automatically deploys it to your Netlify account. So you're up and running like straight away. So the quickest, least opinionated, most enjoyable and empathetic and simple journey from A to B is my recipe for a good technical article.
Awesome. That's great. Vova, what do you think about that? Because you've got some really amazing articles, that are still like years later, they're still popular for some reason on our blog. So what's the recipe for success in your opinion?
Oh, yeah. And the short answer, I usually tell people when they say how to write a good article, I'll say, come up with a catchy title and a good illustration. That's good enough to attract attention. That's why I love our blog, because we pay a lot of attention to style and illustration, all that stuff. Because I literally met a lot of people going, oh, you have such a beautiful illustration in your blog. That's just the reason why we want to come back and read it. But that's kind of, okay, joking apart. I think my kind of a framework for writing a good article, as I understand it, but my understanding is like probably not correlating with most readers, but anyway, I think my goal is not to tell the reader the exact steps to, say, build something, to implement or learn everything in detail. I want to write an article that gets your brain in gear, that bursts your imagination, that helps you to figure out that, oh, there is something you can for example, built with this tool. Oh, amazing. I can try. I would like to try to do it myself. Something that would encourage users to do something after reading this book. Not just, okay, I read it. That's great. I got something new. And let's just store it in my mind and forget in a week or so. I want them to continue engaging with the topic on their own. And that's hard to achieve, frankly speaking. I think my solution is not to reveal all the details, probably leaving links for those who are interested in the technical implementation, like maybe specs, RFCs, whatever, like hardcore stuff. Let's leave it apart for those who are interested in it. Give them an opportunity to learn that themselves, but do not produce copy pastable content. So just like, copy paste, oh, it works. Okay, I don't care about all this text around this code blocks. Why do you read it? So just, as I said, something that will make readers do something beyond reading, actually. That's because it's technical content. And technical learning technical things is most efficient when you do some practice. And to have this practice, you need to do something yourself. And for that, sure, you can share code examples, snippets, sample applications, and so on. But do not navigate them 100% of their path. Let them do something on their own. I think that's the main principle I try to follow when doing content in any form.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Brad, how about you? What do you think is the best approach to marketing technical stuff?
Yeah, it's a big question. If we're talking just about articles, I think all that was really great advice. Something that I try to do though is instead of, I do write the articles, I put those out there, but I try to kind of have this point of view that I'm coming from that can be used to write several different types of articles. So for example, a lot of the stuff that I do in Rails now, I secretly think that Rails is not the most productive framework out there. I think it's very productive, but I think all other frameworks have caught up. So if you kind of are digging into some of the stuff that I'm putting out there, it's coming from that point of view where it's like, hey, here's some technique that's going to make you more productive. Or maybe it's something, related to, hey, these other frameworks have borrowed these ideas or they've become more productive. So it helps to kind of have that. And there are some positions you can have like that are, I think, provocative in some sense. And that helps too. If you can come up with a point of view that's actually helpful to the community and somewhat controversial or provocative, great. And I'm not saying go out there and be a jerk about it, but like have a point of view that's a bit different, and that will kind of naturally attract attention for whatever it is that you're putting out there. And another thing that I think about, if we're kind of getting into like the topic of how do you convey some kind of complex technical product, I think it's tempting to say, hey, this product we have, it's great. It solves 50 different problems and has 200 different features. And I like to think about the analogy of driving down the road. If you get in your car and you see 50 signs all at once with arrows going in all these different directions, you're just going to be very overwhelmed. So something to think about is how can you kind of just spoon feed these things to developers 2 or 3 pieces at a time. And I've learned the hard way, the thing you want to do whenever you're talking about a product, have ideally 3 features. Don't have more than 5. It's just going to get lost. Maybe your product has 200 features. That means that you're going to have a lot of different interventions kind of along that journey. And whenever somebody's starting out, like they don't need to know about the most advanced feature like SAML sign-on or whatever, unless they're some ultra enterprise customer. So don't worry if you can't convey every single point about your product all at once. Just think about the journey and not the destination that has all the whiz-bang features.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like being an empathetic writer matters, because especially when you're talking about complex things. And I feel like a lot of the times people that are a little bit more advanced, they kind of like get in their bubble, and they don't realize, like, they don't look back at their journey and how they started, and they just assume that everybody's on the same level, which is not true, and when you run into a specific problem, you want to have a solution to that specific problem, not to all the problems in the world. So it makes total sense. Let's talk about channels for engaging developers. So maybe we can start with Vladimir and his view on, like, what are the different channels, for distributing your content and engaging with developers. Because you mentioned the blog, right, which is like the main for bigger pieces of content, but what are the other venues?
Yeah, I think like blog is probably, I wouldn't say it's not it's like a distribution channel, not a communication channel, like two different things, because in order to people learn about your blog, you need to share this information somewhere, and then we have a social networks and all that stuff. But if we go beyond online tools, I would say for open source, again, I'm today advocating for open source. So for open source, live events and live hangouts, especially at the early stage, are very important for several reasons. And actually, some of them lead to online back. But so it's much easier to tell about your product in person, to give a talk, or not even give a talk, just to mention it in the discussion and get the immediate feedback, probably start a discussion, and maybe the coverage is lower, like, that it's dozen or like 100 of people if it's a talk at conference, maybe 1,000 if it's a big one. But then the word of mouth would spread faster when people learn it personally and it clicked with them right away. They probably able to ask some question and talk to you, and they're going to share it for you, and they're using their kind of networks. But another important thing here was in-person thing and meeting other people, meeting other developers, trying to be social, which is hard again. The third word developers don't like being social, right? We already have marketing trend and socializing. Okay, but I found, like, from my experience at least, the more people you know in person, especially if they're already active in social media and social fields, they will likely promote your future technical marketing in these networks. They like likes, shares, retweets, comments, and so on, because you know each other, you talk to each other, that makes it easier to support each other actually than to support some unknown avatar from the internet you never seen, never talked to. And that's why if you want to make your product, whatever, known by many people, more people, talking to them at live events, it's beneficial. I have an example, very interesting example actually from my experience. I have, beyond Anycable, I have another more popular actually Ruby tool called TestProf. It's also a dev tool. It's a profiling tool for slow Rails tests. Luckily, we have a lot of them in the community. So the tool is popular, used by big companies. But for many years, it wasn't known, at least I think today it's still not the good situation. It wasn't known beyond Europe, just because I never spoke about it at US conferences. For some reason, no one interested in this topic here. But I gave a lot of talks in different parts of Europe in a couple of years. And that's how this tool was adopted by big companies, like big projects like Discourse, GitLab. And they started to know about each other and they use it every day. And in the United States, people just discovering it right now. Since like 4 years, it has been, the major release has been published and it's been popular in the rest of the world, just because I never talked about it here in person anywhere. I talked about everything else, but not this particular tool. And even though they saw it in my Twitter, my GitHub, whatever, they just, oh, I don't know what is it. I never seen a conference talk about it. I never saw anyone mentioning it somewhere. I don't know what is it. It just helped me to make it kind of a popular at one place, but we have this contrast just because I never used it. I never used offline tools to promote it here in this part of the world. So yeah, so going live still a good option to promote your work, to get more traction, to get more users, to get more feedback, which is more important. Especially positive feedback, by the way, because online you'll usually get like issues, right? When you do an open source, but offline people usually tell you, "Oh, I'm using your gem. It's cool, great work. Oh, nice. I wish you would write an issue about it. Probably, I don't know, but yeah, that's another reason to go offline sometimes."
I mean, in open source, your audience is kind of ambiguous too. You don't know who actually uses your product, your project all the time, right? So
that's the biggest problem of open source. Yes, as I joke often, the only way to know how many people use your even popular, like on GitHub stars, to just release a version with a critical back.
Yes.
And then count the number of issues or subscribers to the first published issue and see, okay, how many people want to put you in hell. So now you know how many users you have out there. Yeah. But do not do that very often. Maybe once.
Salman, do you want to talk about your experience? Because I mean, you're an active Twitch streamer, right? Like you stream on Twitch. What do you recommend as channels, to explore, to bring marketing across? Yeah.
I was going to say, really, Vladimir said everything that I was really going to end with, in that I think in this early adopter community where we're actually building stuff, we tend to default to the thought that everyone's online. So if I post this tweet, or if I do this Twitch stream, or if I do this YouTube video, everyone's going to see it and it's going to grow and it's going to be great. But there are far more developers, everyday developers just doing the 9 to 5 who are in this world than developers who are on the internet. And so I think the key thing, if you really want that real growth, if you're moving from the startup early adopter stage to the growth stage, you have to find ways to reach those developers. I actually think like one of the good things about my Twitch streams is that I do reach a very different audience than what I would reach on Twitter or Dev2, because actually a lot of the people who are watching my Twitch stream are everyday developers who have me on in the background whilst they're doing their day job, because I stream in like European day job hours. And so I do have a lot of conversations with those viewers who are just doing a bog standard .NET app for a client and things like that, who don't even have the capacity or the space to go into the early adopter space of those kind of tools because they're stuck in the legacy systems. So there are like, I think we have to be very mindful that there are people who literally don't have the space or capacity or the ability to use those tools because of the jobs they're kind of trapped in, because that's what most of the industry is. I did have this kind of thing written down that I was going to say, this is another word I don't like, and I don't know why, but you could try and reach those developers in those companies through hackathons, go in to the companies, but it makes people have to socialize and do weird extracurricular stuff when they don't have time for it because they've got budgets and they've got deadlines. And so hackathons seem like they get in the way for those types of developers. But I think the key is to try and develop relationships in person, like Vladimir said, meetups, conferences, events. I think as a company, I think it's really valuable to attend events as attendees rather than having a booth. So you can have the opportunity to meet people in a hallway, sit next to someone in a conference hall, rather than sit in your swag with an email sign-up list and try and sell your product. I think I'd rather sit next to Paul of Supabase in a conference hall, going to watch a talk that Vlad's giving and have a chat with him, rather than sneak up to the Supabase booth and be afraid that they're going to ask for my email address. So I think it's real relationships rather than parasocial or company and consumer relationships are, I think, key to infiltrate and spread more word of mouth kind of appreciation for your tool and company.
I was just at a conference yesterday. I went to the Global Conf by Startup Grind here in San Francisco, well, in the Silicon Valley. And the best socializing bit happened after the conference was over. Like people were just standing, around, just having a chat. Like it was the best experience of socializing at that conference. Obviously you can attend talks, you can go to see the booths, but it's not as exciting as just having a real conversation with somebody. Yeah, I totally second that. Paul, what do you think are, the best channels to reach out to developers? Hackathon?
Hackathons are great. I think, developers are everywhere, so you just want to be prolific, right? And even if your tool, you're just getting started. I remember at the start we, would ship, and then at the end of the month we'd put it on our blog, GitHub releases, we'd put it on Dev.to, Hashnode, Twitter. It doesn't matter where it is, you'd repurpose it. It's actually, I think Salma said. So you want to be in the places where the developers are themselves and be there as frequently as possible. That's kind of the idea. There's no bad channel, basically.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's talk about balancing kind of like business needs with what the community wants. Because, through your social media or through your whatever channels, you're talking to your, developer community. So how do technical marketing teams make sure that they have a nice balance between the goals of the business, and the needs of developers? Brad, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I think the obvious thing is that the business needs to make money to survive, to continue to serve the developers. So I think just keeping that reality is really important. The other thing that I think developers like is transparent pricing. If they see call for pricing on your website, that's going to be like a very big turnoff. And it's going to also kind of harm adoption in that sense. So I think to market it to developers, product marketing is very important in that you make it accessible at a low price level and you give them an idea and predictability of how is this thing going to scale, not just technically, but whenever I have to go pitch this thing to my team or to my boss, like what am I going to show them the end story is? And there's a lot of boxes to check there beyond just kind of the technical thing, for pricing to vendor lock-in. And there's this whole just world of things that you want to make sure that you address, so that the customer isn't going to fear that they're going to be stuck with you, and they're not going to fear that you'll eventually extort them for lots of money if they're locked in. So you kind of have to balance that out where, hey, yes, we are going to charge you money. We're a business. We need to do that to survive and to sustainably kind of serve and solve your problems. But here's kind of how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to be transparent about it, so there's no surprises for you as a customer, and hopefully there's no surprises for us as a business. I think the other kind of important thing in a marketing function is you're kind of the voice of the customer. You have your ear to the ground. You're hearing their pain points. So you need to figure out some way to convey that back to the business to make sure that they're actually working on problems that people are actually having. I think that problem becomes more challenging the bigger a company gets. I've scaled from a company of 1 to about 50 or 60. I think it's a whole different ball game whenever the organization scales up into hundreds of people and eventually thousands, a massive organization. The marketing function is going to look completely different there, and probably have to go through a lot more layers to connect the customer to the business. So I think it's just more challenging the larger the organization gets.
Yeah. Having those developer advocates is one of the reasons why people will continue using your tool, right? Making sure that the feedback is not only kind of taken into consideration, but also is acted on, because you don't want to have that kind of like, okay, what do you guys think? And then never do anything with it, that's kind of like a tough spot to be in. Paul, do you want to share your experience about balancing those needs of your developer community and, the product? Like, how do you make sure they're aligned?
Yeah, just on your point about the developer advocacy, we do have dev rels at Supabase, but also I think if you're an engineer, it's very important that you're product focused as well. So don't just ship with your head down, move tickets around. Ideally, you're the one interfacing with the customer, chatting to them. We don't have product managers at Supabase. The developers just, tell us what they're going to ship based on all the feedback that we're funneling to them. So that way, yeah, you can really actually empathize with the customer and you can chat to them and you can be a dev rel essentially for your own products. From our perspective, it's very easy to cater to the business needs because we focus on indie developers. I honestly don't know how we'll do it when we're starting to bifurcate the organization between enterprise. But for example, I think of the activities largely segmented into different sort of what you would call ICPs, ideal customer profiles. If you've got one ICP, which is an indie developer, and another one, which is an enterprise type developer, they're going to exist probably in different mechanisms. An indie developer might be, memes on Twitter, whereas a enterprise customer probably has high intent. They're searching for a solution. You're probably going to hit them with some Google AdWords, things like this. You wouldn't target indie developers in that mechanism because they really despise being marketed to. Whereas, you're just really putting a really strong line between these two ICPs, dividing the channels up between them, and then reaching them in different ways with different messaging.
Yeah, that's great. Let's dive into this hot topic of common technical marketing mistakes that you see happening. Salma, do you want to start with your take? What are your pet peeves?
2 words: blazing fast. I don't know how many times people have said their app is blazing fast. It doesn't even mean anything anymore. What does it even mean anyway? I mean, fire isn't fast and fire blazes. Fire is hot. So words, right? There was also a meme going around somewhere on Twitter about hero banners on landing pages where they all look the same and they all say the same, like the best product for blah blah. And it's you have to be careful with your language. You can't just copy and paste what other people's do, and you can't just say blazing fast. And sometimes it's very clear that non-developers are trying to market to developers. So someone on the marketing team, hey, I know what developers want. They want blazing fast applications. It's like, no, we just want to know what your product does and what problem it solves for me, and how easy it is to get up and running. So ask your developers, get your developers involved in talking about it to developers, because it's very obvious when non-technical people are writing stuff and it's kind of just marketing for the sake of marketing. No value is being provided to me when I read the words blazing fast. My eyes roll out of my head. So the mistake is that you're not talking to developers, and because you're not sourcing the expertise of your own developers, like what Paul was saying. Developers are talking to developers. So just be honest and authentic. Don't copy and paste silly things you find on the internet. The end.
Yeah, guilty as charged. We actually used blazing fast for image proxy promotion. So I also don't like it, and I feel like there are better ways. Like in marketing, I feel like you almost have to be specific. Like the more specific you are, the more the narrower your focus, the better, because you're solving just one problem, talk about it. Like in essence, what do you do? Brad, do you want to share your pet peeves in technical marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw one word out there that bugs me too, is the phrase easy to use. You see that thrown all over the place. It's just so easy to make claims like that mean nothing. Showing the claim is what I tend to reach towards, like show, don't tell. But to get another mistake that I think can be a very costly mistake is to build a product first and A, assume people care about it, B, assume that it needs to be perfect before you ship it. And whenever you finally ship the thing, you're probably going to find that nobody cares about it. And it's a bummer because you spent all that time making this thing perfect, and you ship something out there that maybe people don't even want, because again, you're kind of living in your own little world, working on your own little product, not getting feedback from real users. So the anecdote to that, and the way that I'll approach building and shipping products, is to just quickly get something out there. It doesn't have to be perfect, and something that you'll see kind of frequently in some Hacker News posts is you see people like tearing an idea apart. I think that's scary to a lot of people, and rightfully so. But if I put something out to the world and it's not perfect and people are just ripping it to shreds and just like trashing it, and whatever the comments are, I actually view that as almost an act of love. And the way that I view that emotion, you have hate and love. Those things are very close to each other. What's the opposite end of that is indifference. You don't want to ship something where people are indifferent about it. If you put something out into the world and people are upset about it, it means they want it to work. It means that they're disappointed that it's not working, that it's not perfect, that it doesn't have those features. It's very easy whenever you have people feeling that emotion to just say, well, what can I do to make it better? They'll tell you something, and then, maybe you just build that, or you have to interpret it somehow, but then you ship that, and you can shift that kind of negative emotion of love into more of a positive emotion of love. And then you'll have people who are like, yes, they shipped this thing and it was broken and they fixed it just for me. And you're going to have some super fans if you kind of think of it that way. And it's really important to iterate and ship stuff out there. I've literally shipped products where I just take my iPad out and I pencil a sketch in for the hero page and I ship it out there. And it's like crude stick figures. It's fine. Actually, nobody cares about it. They think it's funny. So like, think in those terms, ship short iterations, get feedback, and the tighter that you can have that feedback loop, the better. If people are ripping your product apart and you're feeling bad about it, don't. Like, that's a good problem to have. A bad problem to have is one of indifference where nobody cares.
Yeah, that's awesome. This actually resonates with me because yesterday at that conference, there were YC partners talking about like giving advice to startups. And they mentioned that one of the big mistakes that early founders do is they overwork their pitch decks. They can spend a year on just like perfecting their pitch deck and nobody cares. Like it just doesn't matter that much, like get your product out there, iterate fast. The cheaper the iterations, the better, and you'll get to the place where you need to go. So I totally get that. That's great piece of advice. Now maybe let's go to the good side of things. Let's talk about like the recipe for success. Paul, do you want to share your kind of like ideal scenario? Like just what are some things that you want to implement maybe with Supabase, and what are just the best practices and technical marketing that you see around?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, I don't know. We take an approach at Supabase, which is just very much like we look at what's working and we look how we can improve it. We've got this concept of Kaizen. It means like it's a Toyota production system ideal, and it means improve everything from CEO to assembly line worker. So like, for example, this week we're doing our launch week. It's launch week number 7. Every time at the end of a launch week, we just do a big retrospective of what could we improve from last time. And we just improve the things that didn't go so well. And, you do this frequently enough and suddenly you become better and better at positioning yourself, at talking about your products, at, finding the right channels, and you experiment a lot. So I don't know what the world's best marketing looks like. We're not there yet, but we'll just continue improving until we can hopefully reach that.
Okay, awesome. Brad, do you want to share your take on it?
Yeah, I agree. There's no just set recipe. I think what's important again is iteration. You're not going to get it right. Just if you go in with that mindset, you're not going to get it right. Then you're not going to feel so bad whenever you just take all these, you go up to the plate and you take some hits and you're going to whiff a lot of them. But just learn from those, and then just keep trying different things. Eventually you'll find something that resonates. Maybe you'll be able to kind of latch onto that signal. Maybe you won't, but just find those things that work and keep doing more of those. don't get upset about the stuff that you whiff on. Just kind of discard that or try it in some other channel, and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Awesome. Vova, do you want to go? Give it a go as well? I remember you talking about the gaining the critical mass. I think that's one of those things that we definitely need to touch on.
Okay, yeah. So I think we already discussed actually part of the, not sure how big it is, this part of the success is to produce a good content. So yeah, we discussed how to resonate, what is a good like article, video, whatever. That's important. Like you can get kind of a traction engagement with not so good content if you very good in marketing, probably, right? But I'm not. I don't know. That's just a hypothesis. But good content is a part of the success for sure. But another part, it's hard to say. I can't say I can't name myself successful. Sorry, I don't have that much engagement, and my content is boring and technical usually. So, but one thing I can say for sure is you need to add some kind of regularity. You need, like, content should be like, it's like continuous deployment of content. Like deploy fast, ship fast, fix fast. Retrospective is a great idea. Yes. Analyze what you did. Maybe you should stop doing this. I really like the idea of discarding channels, like because I tried different ways. I was recording screencasts. I'm still doing this, but I think I should stop doing that because it's not a good channel for me. It's just too much time wasting for almost nothing. But yeah, fail fast, like in a good sense, like when technical term, like when you run tests, you want to fail fast to not wait for the build because it's already failed, and just do that regularly. That's one of the keys to success for sure. Maybe at some point when you already got, you built your company, personal brand, being non-regular but sudden instead could be a better strategy. You drop something unexpectedly. No one expects you to release something on this day or this month or whatever, and you drop it, and that's a huge success. But that's next level. I think it's definitely not in the beginning. In the beginning, you just need to work hard to plan, to analyze what you did and plan ahead, and that should help you to grow the audience, grow the number of users, get the feedback, and so on.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to share a little insight that you had shared previously with me. So basically being consistent is one of the keys to success, right, in marketing. And chances are not everything's going to work, but it will definitely not work if you stop, so like the only way to go forward is to continue creating content, continue, writing about it. That's writing about your product, potentially even like building public, and only then people will learn about it. If you don't talk about it, nobody's going to learn about it. Yeah. So it's like, it's definitely the only route to go. Yeah. Do you want to add to that or?
Yeah, just finish it, like no communication, no any signs of you, no users, no. And your project is actually just a single person project. It's not an open source project, for example, not a product especially. So yeah, just be alive kind of for as much as you can.
Yeah. Awesome. Salma, do you want to talk about your favorite practices in technical marketing?
I think it's all about feelings. As a developer, when you can't solve a bug and you feel like you want to die and quit development and the world is the worst place to be. But when you solve that bug, you feel like a genius and unstoppable and nothing can ever touch you. So there's a lot of feelings in development, despite it being very technical and very, computer based. There's a lot of emotions that you go through on a daily basis, sometimes on an hour by hour basis. You can watch me live do this on my Twitch stream. Anyway, so it's about feelings. And there's a quote from Maya Angelou, poet and civil rights activist. And she said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And it's true, right? Because this is going to come into the next question that you're going to ask us. If you can make people feel something, if you can inspire them, and even like Brad said, if you can make people feel disgusted with what you've launched because it doesn't work and they're disappointed, that's great. If you can make people feel something, they will remember you. I don't care what you tell me that your product's going to do, but if it can make me feel something real, either through pain or joy, then I'm going to remember it. That's my recipe. It sounds like nonsense, but I don't think it is.
Oh, thank you. So we're approaching our final question, and I left it's like my dessert. I do it for the, for last. So let's talk about just wonderful stories you experienced, in your journeys through technical marketing. And we'll start with Brad here. Brad, share your one good story.
Yeah, I think about this more in terms of just other communities that I've seen that I admire, like how well they've built up a community. And there's actually a lot of really good stuff happening in Discord. I don't think we've talked much about that, but we've talked about kind of in-person interactions being helpful. I think about that in terms of how can you have more one-on-one interactions. And I'm seeing just a lot of like very vibrant communities building up in Discord. One that I particularly admire is Go Rails. Chris Oliver's just done a ton of community building, both in Discord, outside of Discord, all the videos that he releases to teach people who are new to Rails that are coming in and they're eager to build stuff, gets them on their feet and makes them productive in some way, shape, or form. And it's just a really beautiful thing thinking about how many people are going through that to learn either how to build, a startup that could become a big startup tomorrow, or they're just getting into Rails so they can become proficient at their place of work. So really communities that are building stuff and helping people, helping builders build amazing things that just makes humanity better for everybody. To me, that's really a beautiful thing. And that's kind of my warm and fuzzy marketing stories. And there's just tons of that in the Ruby community and all the different places that we hang out.
Yeah, awesome. Vova, do you want to share your warm and fuzzy story about technical marketing?
Warm and fuzzy story. That's actually a hard question for me. I never thought about tech marketing in terms of being warm and fuzzy and miracles and all that stuff. I can share just maybe my personal excitement related to technical marketing back in the days. And it's kind of typical for open source stuff or for open source related work. The thing is that when you do open source, like you release projects, you like blog posts, give conference talks, you often do not get a lot of feedback, positive, negative, whatever, in the first place, like first month, year, whatever. But suddenly it can hit you in a long distance. And for the last couple of years, I think I'm collecting these flashbacks when someone comes to me and mentions, "Oh, I saw your talk at RailsConf 2018. You're talking about authorization, and we started using it right away, and now we're building in the whole project on top of you use this for the authorization layer. It's cool." Wow, someone sold my talk. I never heard about your company, but that's amazing. It turned out that even if you do not know, that's again back to the question that in open source you don't have a lot of feedback. You get this feedback over the years, and you realize, oh, it's actually used by someone, and they're grateful for that, but they just never had a chance to tell you about it. And one thing one cool thing of being a consultant and working in consultancy and table martians is that here I can see how the same effect, but converted into business, because at some point, again, we started getting people like support requests or collaboration requests based on my blog posts from the past. And it was the first time, I think, that the most exciting situation was when YC alumni wrote us, "Oh, we saw you built any cable. It looks like it's cool. We would like to work with you because our website is getting more users and we have scalability issues. Let's collaborate on fixing that." And you see, oh yeah, the post from like 3 years ago now giving us new amazing clients, and that continue to work. And that's kind of that make me think like, yeah, really happy for all I did and the first years of spending just without any feedback, without knowing whether they're users, should I continue or not. And the thing is, if you do something that really solves problems, it may be small problems, not like big technical projects, even smaller libraries. If you found them useful, if you told about them somewhere, the internet remembered that. ChatGPT knows about it, by the way, now, and it can actually suggest using your library now. So just give it some time to kind of be adopted by the community somewhere in the world, and it will get back to you. So, and then you will feel this warm feeling of, oh, I don't know, kind of excitement. Oh, okay, that wasn't in vain. So yeah, that's probably my kind of story for this question.
Yeah, ChatGPT would know about it if it happened before 2021, right? Like that's that's their database. Salma, do you want to share your warm and fuzzy story with us?
Whenever I produce anything, a video or a blog post or anything, I always keep in my mind, if I can help at least one person, then it's worth it. And last year, I don't do it now, but last year I experimented with a TikTok account, and I tried, I didn't like it, but there was one TikTok that I released, and it was basically just a Twitch clip that I turned into a vertical video. And one of the things I was talking about in it was when people gatekeep beginner developers. And I think I said something like, as long as if you've written your first line of code, then you're a developer. And, I deleted my TikTok account, forgot about it. And then about 6 months later, someone comes into my Twitch stream and says, "Salma, I saw your TikTok and I had never done any development in my life before. But after I saw your TikTok, I signed up for a boot camp and I just got my first developer job." And that is the thing that has made me feel the best in my life, because from that stupid TikTok, someone changed their life and was inspired and got a job and came to tell me about it. And they found me online and came to tell me about it. And that was the nicest thing. And I will never forget it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It kind of like comes full circle. Yeah. Paul, do you want to kind of like close it up with your good story?
You probably should have left that one for last. It's hard to beat. No, I think like a very relevant one is how I ended up here, which of course for some backstory, when we ship a new product in Supabase, we try to support existing open source communities wherever we can. We have this product called storage for large file storage. Images, of course, is one of the things that we people upload images and then they download images. That's how it works. And then, of course, as they are doing that, then they also want to do transformations. And so when we looked at this tool, we looked around the open source ecosystem and we looked at all the different tools that were available. And of course, one of them was image proxy. So we built on it, and we wrote a blog post for Hack and Use when we did the last launch week. It was about 3 months ago now. And we just mentioned, hey, these are the tools that we assessed. this is the one that we really liked, and we think it's fantastic, and we're adopting it in the Supabase stack. And then, of course, the CEO reached out to say thanks, and we got on a call. And I think I, as well, did a presentation to your company, just talking about how we integrated it, and then here we are today. And that's all from just writing for developers the tools that we think that they would love, because we loved the tool as well. And then here we are today, just on a call together talking about marketing. So many things happen out of random coincidences.
Yeah, that is a wonderful story. That was great. I think that we're wrapping up a little bit earlier. This has been great. I want to say that I'm lucky to be in the same room, even though it's virtual, but in the same room with you guys. I mean, I feel like you are the role models for many people in the industry, and I, wish you success. And I love watching you all succeed in your own ways. So I want to thank you for being here today. This was amazing. And our next episode is going to happen in May, and it's going to be on design for DevTools, which is a very exciting topic. We have some exciting speakers as well. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in May. And thank you all. And see you soon. Thank you.